Hi, I'm Patrick Delahanty, and this is AnimeCons TV. I'm back here at the Santa Clara Convention Center. This background may look familiar, and I intentionally chose this again because I was here for the Hydra Comic-Con report. And now I'm in the exact same spot recording my Crunchyroll Expo report. This is the first Crunchyroll Expo. It's put on, obviously, by Crunchyroll, and it's also Left Field Media is one of the organizers. And this is held at the Santa Clara Convention Center in Santa Clara, California. And it's a 3-day convention which took place August 25th through 27th. And so you've probably heard of Crunchyroll. If you've been an anime fan at all, Crunchyroll is everywhere. And in fact, if you've been on Facebook or anime websites, you've probably seen Crunchyroll ads, because in the last month, they've really taken over all the ads. You see their ads everywhere. And so that really seems to have drawn people into this convention. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of areas that were crowded, particularly the artist alley. There was some overcrowding issues there that I'll talk about when I get to that. But there was a really good turnout. Now, my sources tell me that a couple months ago they were worried about turnout because apparently the pre-registrations weren't very high. And if you were paying attention to them online, it was also evident in how some of the deadlines got extended. And usually when a convention extends a deadline, like say your Artist Alley deadline, if it's due one day and then they say, oh, well, we're keeping it open an extra 2 weeks, that's a sign that it's not filling up fast enough. And like Artist Alleys are one thing that usually fills up right away. So, and so that was a sign to anyone that they were having trouble. But in the last month, there were the banner ads online. If you drive anywhere in the Bay Area, billboards everywhere. So they clearly spent a lot of money on advertising this convention, and it paid off because there's tons of people here. I wasn't here Friday, but I was told that there weren't quite as many people, but this is Saturday and it's filled up. They have pretty much the same programming you can expect from any anime convention. There's Artist Alley, there's a dealer's room, exhibit hall, there's a main stage, they have autographs for guests, and then there's some panel rooms, but they refer to them as stages. More on that in a minute. Next door to this is Mag West, a completely independent convention run by MagFest from back east. And they have arranged, in cooperation with Mag West, to allow some of their attendees into Crunchyroll Expo, and the Crunchyroll Expo attendees can go into some of the Mag West events. I think there's some concerts that you can get into. And so we'll start off with the exhibit hall, and it's exactly the same exhibit hall that Hydra Comic-Con used, except this is a lot more crowded, and there's some really large booths, including a giant Crunchyroll booth right in the middle. Here's a map of the exhibit hall, and you can see giant Crunchyroll. That's not just a bunch of small ones around it, but there's a giant booth there. And they're selling all sorts of limited edition merchandise. Apparently a lot of the stuff they had at their previous appearances, like Otakon. Then they have some con shirts for sale. Then there's a bunch of other dealers. But as I wandered through the dealer's room, I realized I wasn't seeing anybody selling Blu-rays or DVDs, no discs to be found anywhere. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or if this is just the way the industry's going, but there were, FYE had some on a table. It wasn't even a crowded table, it was just, some discs out. And there was another vendor that had some bookshelf that had some discs, but not a whole lot of selection. There was a lot of art books though. The dealer's room also, there were concession areas in there so you could get a bite to eat. There were other concession areas. There was one in the main lobby of the convention center. And they also had food trucks outside, so you could go out and get lunch at one of the food trucks that they had come by. The Artist Alley, a number of people had pointed out to me, oh, by the way, several fans came up to me and recognized me from the podcast, and so thanks for saying hi. But they also told me their experience with the convention, because I was asking how they like it. And one thing that multiple people pointed out was that they're not checking badges for the Artist Alley. And it made me take a look at other places, and I realized there's multiple places they're not checking badges. I'm not encouraging anybody to ghost, but I thought it was odd. And then that also made me realize, where's the staff? There were people checking badges by the main stage, there was registration staff, and then there's obviously Crunchyroll staff working their booth. But if you wander around the halls, you don't see convention security staff or anything, which can be a problem because when there's a lot of people, they tend to congregate. And there were people there was like an Indian circle in the middle of a hallway blocking traffic. And I was thinking, this is something that convention staff would say, hey guys, can you move to a less congested area? But there was nobody around to do that. So I don't know if they were thrown off by their attendance numbers, not planning for this, but they desperately need to have more staff. Just somebody walking the floor to make sure everything's going fine, to, keep everything in order. And definitely check badges more. Also bags. When I came in the morning, everybody had to go through a bag check. They look in your bag, the thing that you do for any major event. And so, okay, fine. Then I went out to the car to get my tripod, which I'm actually using right now for this, and came back in, no bag checks. So I don't get it. Why only in the morning? It's still just about as crowded. So anyway, they have panels. They call them stages, I guess. They're panel rooms. They did something that has annoyed me for a while, where conventions will rename rooms. Rather than say, oh, this panel is in Hall A, this panel is in Ballroom B, and take advantage of people who, A, know the convention center, but they've been here before, and B, can follow the convention center's built-in signage. No, instead they've renamed it, so you've got stuff like the main stage, the CRX stage, there were others, I can't find them in the guidebook now, but they renamed it, so you have to depend only on the Sudachi stage, the Yuzu stage. Yeah, so you have to depend on their signage and only their signage. And if you've been here before, you don't know where these places are. Hime stage, is that one of the big rooms? Is that a small room? I don't know. And so it's one of the things that really irks me about conventions is when they rename it. I've complained about it with other conventions. I'm complaining about it here. Don't rename the rooms. Use this, say it's in Ballroom B, and then keep it Ballroom B. You don't have to be cute with the names. The schedule's fairly decent. They've got the main stage, their main events room. They have a CRX stage, which was in a, I think that was, check my map, double check. Yeah, that was in like a theater. And so everybody's sitting in like a lecture hall sort of thing. And that was really cool. And it's a good room to have events in. There was a Yuzu stage, Hime stage, and Sudachi stage. And those are just regular panel rooms. It's hard to tell from the schedule though that these are big ones and those are small. But after a few hours of wandering around, I got the gist. And so they've got some main events. They've got the normal stuff like a Masquerade. They've got some industry discussions and other large panel or the stage, the theater room. And then they've got some game shows and panels in the smaller rooms. And I talked to a couple panelists, and oh, by the way, my badge says panel. I didn't run a panel. They ran out of press badges, so they put a sticker on the panel badge. Apparently they do have press badges, somebody said, but anyway, so I was talking to a couple panelists, and they told me that they were asked to run panels here. And oh, great, they're seeking out good content, and I applaud that. The problem is they were seeking it out like 2 weeks before the con. And so the panelists had very little time to prepare. And so if you're going to invite panelists, you got to do it months ahead of time so that they can prepare to get this stuff ready. Another complaint I heard was about the autographing. Their autograph tickets is apparently very confusing, and so they're free autograph tickets, but you can only get 2 for 2 different guests each time you go through the line. And if you want to get for more tickets for more guests, you got to go back through the line again. And they give it out in the morning. The ticket giveaway times are Friday at 11 a.m., Saturday at 8:30 a.m., and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. I talked to somebody who wasn't able to get here at 8:30, and so he's missing out on autograph signings that are in the late afternoon. It is terrible to require people to get here at 8:30 a.m. for something that's in the afternoon. And some people have to work, and they can't come until later. So that really needs to be improved. You gotta have multiple ticket signings, ticket giveaways, and try to accommodate people's schedule better. On Saturday night, they had the Masquerade, and as I record this, I actually haven't seen the Masquerade yet. It's scheduled to take place in just under an hour, and it's running from 8 until 10. It's scheduled, so I don't know if it's going to run long or not. And it runs until 10. It's scheduled. The problem is the parking garage they directed everybody to, across from Levi Stadium, closes at 10. I'm not going to be locked in there, so I either have to wrap up this con report and go move my car, or I have to shut down my recording of the Masquerade early and maybe not get the awards and run out and get my car out of there. So probably going to go move it before the Masquerade, just in case. But they're running this until 10, and that closes at 10. It seems like they could have, accommodated that better, had that garage open later, so people have time. I'm sure the Masquerade will be good. We'll see. There was a room across from registration that they apparently used for lines for registration in the dealer's room. But after those lines went away, the room was empty and cosplayers were just sitting in there. I mean, it was great to have a place to sit, but it seems like that's a huge misuse of space that could have been used for other things. It's the same room Hydra Comic Con used for their main events room. So it's fairly big. And you could have had some panels in there, or, I probably don't want to move chairs in, but it could have been better utilized because it's sitting empty. And maybe put registration in there. I don't know. I haven't thought about this much, but I know that's not utilized very well if it's just sitting empty in the middle of the convention. As I mentioned in my Hydra Comic Con report, right across the street there's Levi Stadium, and there's the Great America, Six Flags Great America, so you can ride some roller coasters if there's not enough for you to do at the con. And that's all there is in the area, really. There's not many places to eat, so you're kind of stuck with what's in the dealer's room, or that little shop outside the dealer's room, or the food trucks. There is a public transportation, a little light rail station right outside, so you can get that to get here. And I'm not sure what else there is to mention. As for if the convention's worth it, well, if they do this again next year, and I don't know if it's going to be in the same place, there's no announcement for any dates for next year. They've got a large guest list, and but if you look closely, nothing against a lot of these guests, but there's a lot of YouTube people, and maybe you're into that, but for an anime convention, I was actually surprised to see Johnny Weir here, the Olympic figure skater. He's a big fan of Yuri on Ice, and I went to part of his panel, and it was actually really funny and interesting. He's kind of their ambassador to Yuri on Ice. And but yeah, check out the guests they have and see if there's guests you want to see before you come next year. And hopefully they'll announce the guests early. They had not announced any guests at the start of July, I think, and that was month almost 2 months before the convention, no guests announced, and so they gotta step this up and get everything out there earlier. You can't be waiting on the last minute to invite panelists to get guests. So yeah, if you want to come next year, take a look at the guests and decide if it's something you're interested in, and if you're gonna, you may think of coming from outside the Bay Area. If you're in the Bay Area, you'll probably come here. If you're outside the Bay Area, then you'll have to decide if the guests are worth it. The convention itself, probably get bored easy. I mean, they've got some good panels going on, but you know, I don't know if it's necessarily worth the trip right away. They've got some first year issues, let's say, and so you might want to hold off and wait and see how next year goes before you fly across the country to get here. Yeah, I know if it was held, because I'm in California right now, if it was held in, let's say, Virginia or New York next year, I wouldn't go. No. But I'd encourage anybody in those states, definitely go. And, you know, if you can get there in a couple hours, oh yeah. But I wouldn't travel all day to get there. The Artist Alley, this really annoyed me. I don't know who set that up, but they really messed it up, because you walk in and the first aisle you see in the first door is so small that you could stand like 3 people, and that's it. That's the aisle, and it's filled up, which is bad because you have somebody browsing this side, somebody browsing the other side. One person can walk through the middle. People can't come the other direction. It was poorly designed, but they weren't all like that. There were some aisles that had a clear 10 feet of width. This one had not even 5 feet. It was. They should have seen this when they were setting it up, and they could have fixed it. It would have been so easy. I don't know how they missed this, how they let it go. And I felt really bad for any artists in that aisle, because there's got to be people. I know at first I avoided that aisle, but I made sure to go through it because I wanted to support these artists. But there's got to be people that's like, they see that aisle, say, nope, I'm not going down there. But then they've got some really wide ones further on. They were not spaced evenly. And it really made me mad, because it's something that they could have fixed really easy, and they should have seen it before artists started setting up. But you know, they're set up, there's nothing you can do after they're set up. Also, the space between the aisles in some was really large and small on others, so that was behind the artists where they put all their stuff. Some had tons of space, some had little. You gotta space it better. You gotta have, for a con this size, there should be at least 10 feet of aisle for people to walk through. And they didn't all have this, and it was, that was poorly done. And it was so poorly, it made me mad to be there. But the artists, though, the room was full, and the artists were great, so props to the artists. But I really feel for those on the end near the door. Anyway, that's my talk on Crunchyroll Expo. If you were at Crunchyroll Expo, let us know what you thought. I'm sure I forgot some stuff. Let me know what I forgot. You can call our voicemail line at 762-ADEQUATE. That's 762-233-7828. Or you can email us at podcast@animecons.tv. And, you know, subscribe to us. You're on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll let you know when new episodes are out. And while I was here, I recorded half of an episode of Versus, and that's going to air in a couple months. I'm going to record footage at another convention, and if you're not familiar with Versus, this is where we put people at one convention up against people at another convention and see who can score more points with some little trivia sort of thing. But yeah, watch for that Versus episode. I think it'll be like October, November when that comes out. After our Con Report Marathon is through, and we're getting near the end now. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.